Yeah, that's.
So I think we're all ready to start. Meeting's ready to come to order. And first thing on the agenda is that we have a guest. The mayor has some words of wisdom. And we're all ears.
I want to put my back to anybody.
No, you can stand up here, so everybody.
If you'd like to sit here, would
No, I can stand. Go ahead. I apologize. I'm not going to be able to stay very long, but I
That's
just
all right.
wanted to
We're anxious to hear what you
chat with you a little bit. A couple of things have happened here lately. You saw the announcement from Xcel Energy. They've set up a sort of a just transition committee that and I think there's some confusion for the last 24 months. I think we've had a just transition committee, the city, the county, Board of Water Works, some other entities working. And it's a statutory committee that's set up pursuant to some legislation that's designed to help the communities that are going to be impacted by coal, eliminating coal. Pueblo's a tier 1 community, so we're fortunate we've got a $440,000 grant. We hired a just transitions coordinator. Unfortunately, she's been on the job about 6 weeks. Now it looks like she's probably going to become a county commissioner. So we're going to go back to that process again. But I think my take on the Xcel just transition thing is that it's focused more on how do we transition to another form of generation for them. That's what they're concerned about, is replacing the generation that's going to be lost from Comanche. It's about 750 megawatt plant. And you know as well as I do, Pueblo doesn't get any of that energy. It's all going somewhere else. So I'm not too concerned about that. Obviously, we're concerned about the jobs and the tax base that we'll lose there. Comanche's not going to close till 2030, and they've guaranteed the tax base till 2040. Now, if they bring in some other generation, they get a credit for that, so that they won't have to pay. You won't be able to collect more than the 27 million that we're getting if they get credit for it. But that's where that's at. And I think their committee is going to try to meet and be done by the end of the year. Our Just Transition Committee will continue as we move through this process, and our Just Transition Coordinator as we go through that. So I think those are the points that I wanted to visit with you about. If you got any questions, I'm happy to try to answer.
Well, I just had a comment. When you said that all of a sudden and the way that was set up and who they brought on board, Xcel just picked them all, right?
Yeah.
I wonder if, we've been talking more about deregulation of the electric industry. And if I was Xcel, I'd get all the big industrial colleges and all those presidents together, because if it goes deregulated, then they can purchase from whoever they want to buy from. Because it really struck me unusual that they would pick people that don't have any say in the energy business, but they have a say in what their businesses do. But just a comment.
Yeah.
On that. I wonder if that's their.
Yeah, I don't know what their deal was. They gave a report to City Council on Monday evening, and one of the councilors said, "Well, could we have a member on the committee?" And they said, "No, we've been meeting since January." And so, but apparently the meetings are open to the public. They're recorded meetings and those kind of things, so they're available for people to watch, if not participate in. I don't know if they're doing them live or how exactly they're doing that. And I haven't had a chance yet to watch any of the meetings, but I think it's, that's a sort of a narrow focus of Xcel trying to figure out how they can replace that generation that they're going to lose. All other things being equal, yeah, would we like to have it in Pueblo County? Probably. We'd like to have that tax base here. I signed a letter of support for a grant application that they filed, I think, with the Department of Energy for an experimental battery program on that property that would use rust or something like that.
Pioneer.
Yeah, to be able to provide energy over 4 or 5 days, something like that, rather than just 24 hours or so that batteries ordinarily do. So, I think all that kind of technology is worth exploring. And I know they're obviously probably going to look at the nuclear stuff as well, whether some of those small modular reactors would be appropriate there. I haven't ruled that out, but I've made it pretty clear that I'm really not in favor of nuclear being in the city limits of the city of Pueblo. If all the power is getting shipped north, and we still have the highest electric rates in the state, and the cheaper energy is going up north. So there have to be some significant changes in that power supply system before I could get on board with anything like that. So
We're gonna have a little bit, Mayor, after this is all done and our guests have a chance to speak, then we're gonna talk a little bit more about this. So
good. I'll be
and thanks
anxious
for coming in.
to hear. Yeah. And again, I apologize. I got to run to a couple more meetings tonight. So you guys have fun. I appreciate the work you're doing here. Let me just say one other thing, that we're just in the process of applying for a grant for some more chargers, electric vehicle chargers that we tried to put at, we lost one grant. Well, they took it back because we did not, we couldn't get the chargers installed because I was shocked by the amount of the match. We got an $80,000 grant for the chargers. It's going to be like another 350 the city had to put in. I go, what kind of grant is this? And it turns out, by the time you play for transformers and stuff like that, that's sometimes the cost gets driven up. We've got 4 locations we've chosen: the parking lot here in Union, Steelworks Museum, the mall, and one other that is escaping me now. That would be for high-speed chargers. These are level 3 chargers. It would be high-speed chargers so that people could plug in and do it for just less than an hour probably to charge your car with one of these high-speed chargers. There's some criteria. It has to be pretty close to the interstate or Highway 50 so that people can get off, and it has to be close to some amenities like restaurants or stores and that kind of stuff. So we'll keep you informed as that goes along. But those are sort of the beginning. We're gonna have a lot of those as we move forward. So you guys know that, I'm sure.
We want to be the place they stop.
Yep, we do.
So quick question.
Yep.
Are we ordering electric vehicles for the police department?
We have ordered some, yeah. Getting some pushback from the police on that because so right now they're mostly being driven by supervisors. We have 2 in. I think we've ordered 23 more. But the police are concerned because they're not armored. They don't have, and they haven't been through the crash tests like some of the other vehicles have. I tell them, man, you love driving these things. Maybe you can be outrun the bad guys. But they, yeah. So it's a process that we'll have to go through for them to get used to them. I know some police departments have Teslas and stuff like that. And these, I think, are the Ford Mach-E's, but it won't be long, I think, before some of those bigger vehicles that police officers like will be electrified as well. So yeah, we're moving in that direction. And I'm really have told people that all of our equipment, I'd like it to be electric, and I want to see that option at least when you bring stuff in. I was just last week at the City Summit of the Americas. They had mayors and leaders from North and South America in Denver. They had electric vehicles there, including an electric street sweeper, big electric truck from that XL had. So, it's moving in that direction, but it's going to take a while.
The electrification of everything is a real important thing, and the city needs to be the leader. So thank you.
Yeah. Well, we're going to try.
Real cool.
Okay.
Thanks,
All
Mayor.
right, guys. Thank you very much. Thanks for getting to work.
All right, everybody, let's move on with the agenda, and I want to welcome our guest. And the very first one is Christine King. And I've asked one of our commission members, Ken Dante, if he would be able to kind of facilitate that with you. And so I'm going to turn it over to him right now.
Yeah. So Christine, I'm sorry, I don't have your biography, so I'm going to let you speak to that. But Christine King is the director of Gateway for Accelerated Innovation in Nuclear, which is at the Idaho National Labs. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about your background, Christine, then go into the presentation.
Sure, I'd be glad to. First of all, I very much appreciate letting me do this virtually. I'm calling from Atlanta. going to a conference on small modular reactors tomorrow, actually. And so a little bit about myself. I'm a chemical engineer by training, and I've been in the nuclear business for 30 years. I'm not here to advocate for the technology, though. I'm here just to give you an update on what's going on with the design and the deployment of new nuclear reactors and do my best to answer your questions. I'm going to try to put all my decimal points in my pocket and not speak with jargon. But if I do get some of that jargon coming out of my mouth, feel free to stop me and ask me questions. At GAIN, what we do is we work not only with Idaho National Labs, but with all the laboratories to make sure that the Department of Energy's research and investment in nuclear technology is used and useful as we look at deploying new reactors. So initially, when we were founded 7 years ago, that was working directly with the developers and helping them with their design and research. Now we do equally these types of interactions at a community, regional, or state level where folks are interested in how nuclear might serve them in the future. And I specifically say might serve them because I think you should start with what you are trying to achieve and what your needs are, and then you should pick your technology. Every technology has its pros and cons. Energy is under innovation in every aspect of our sector right now. So we're not the only technology that's innovating. So what I'm going to do is I have a few slides. I wouldn't be a national lab scientist if I didn't show up with slides. Sorry, bad joke. Also on the line with me is one of my colleagues, Chase Blazer. And Chase has actually been helping me in Colorado for about 18 months. We've been working at different levels in the state. Can you guys see the slides and still hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. There's my email address. Light me up anytime. The one thing about the GAIN team is we do want to have your questions. We want to hear what your needs are. And we will go to work on your behalf inside the National Lab and the DOE systems to try to get you connected to either the right information or the right person. All right. I'm not going to do the PowerPoint slideshow because sometimes that does weird things on my little laptop here. Okay, so just to kind of dive in a little bit, so what's different as we're building out new nuclear today? What's different? And I think first of all, it's the versatility. And the versatility shows up in two ways. One, in the sizes that we are designing and building today, and the output. So most generating sources create heat to boil water, to turn the turbine, to create electricity. So as we all go through an energy transition here, we're thinking not only about electricity, but the energy that we need to clean up. And that's where industrial decarbonization and process heat becomes important. When you think about process heat, you can deliver that to your end user in two different ways. You can either do it directly, or you can go through a synthetic fuel like hydrogen. So what's nice about the advanced nuclear reactors is, so the large light water reactors there in gray, you see, those are the operating plants we have today. We have over 90 of them in the United States. But what we're looking at is everywhere from micro reactors to small to mid-sized modular reactors in the hundreds of megawatts. Those mid-sized reactors are similar size and characteristics of a coal station. And I'll get a little bit later about where we are with the research and understanding repurposing a coal station potentially with advanced nuclear. You can see on the far right-hand side all the different ways that through these different outputs, there's different segments of the economy that nuclear technology could serve. Now, when you get down to actually comparing it in terms of the way we tend to talk about our reactors, on the left-hand side, we have the reactors of today. They are predominantly light water reactors. Light water is just a reference to how the type of coolant that's inside the reactor. Light water is tap water with some cleanup, but it's really just basic water that has some constraints, chemical constraints as to, but it's not anything overly fancy. In the reactors that we're building today, we're looking at different coolants. We're looking at high temperature gas reactors where your gas is your coolant. In Wyoming, they're building the Natrium plant, and that's a sodium cooled reactor. You hear folks talk about molten salt technology. And so when you hear those things, what we're talking about is how you cool the reaction. From a generation type, our nuclear fleet has primarily been our baseload generation in the United States. It's given us 20% of our power in the United States. And the difference now is as we look at having more renewables available on the grid, we need our generation to be flexible and dispatchable. And the real change here from our existing plants to these new plants is the ability to ramp up and down more quickly than we have in the past. And so because of those ramp rates, we are able to match and be a very good partner for renewables. Today's systems are designed with active safety systems in mind. And what we're doing in these new reactors is taking advantage of either the physics or designing them with specific engineering modifications in mind to ensure inherent safety. Okay, so what does that mean? So for example, with a new scale reactor, you actually dig down into the earth and the modules are below surface. And what that allows for is natural circulation should you lose power to the station. So just like you have natural circulation in the air, hot air rises and cold air sinks, that's what you get with that configuration. And that's just done through engineering. To give you an idea of what's going on, we are in the decade of demonstration with these reactors. On the far right side, you see a lot of different experiments. The ones that have numbers associated with them are being deployed at Idaho National Laboratory. Project Pele is a Department of Defense reactor. It is a micro reactor that you see it in the back of a semi truck because it is transportable. That is part of the specification associated with this particular project. The Marvel reactor is also a micro reactor, but that's going to be a stable test bed at the Idaho National Laboratory. Moving further, and there's other test beds here that I'm not going to talk about unless you really want to know about the test beds that we're designing at INL. They're pretty cool. But then you start to see, so Kairos is a molten fluoride salt reactor. They're building adjacent to Oak Ridge National Laboratory. X Energy has just announced that they will be building their demonstration unit in Texas with Dow Chemical. And that actually will be built behind the grid to support their industrial operations. You're probably familiar with the carbon-free power project, the UAMPS project. And finally, we have the Natrium project. Hang on just a second. I'm going to minimize my video so I can see my whole screen here. We have the Natrium project that's being built in Wyoming. And what's unique about this particular project is it is being built adjacent to a retired coal station, or soon to be retired coal station, Naughton in Kemmerer. And it's not being built on the site proper. It's being built a few miles down the road. However, they have the benefit of being able to tie directly into existing transmission lines and the substation that's already there. They also benefit from having the workforce in the community starting to work with them on the deployment of that new reactor. The Natrium reactor also has a molten salt thermal energy storage unit. I'm not allowed to call it a big battery, but it's kind of a big battery. And so the Natrium reactor at base power operates at about 350 megawatts. But with this molten salt storage unit, what it gives them the capability to do is to peak for 5.5 hours at 550 megawatts. So as the renewables are coming off in the evening, that gives them, and everybody's coming back home, that gives them peaking power. Now, PacifiCorp will tell you the other, especially in the West, what has become important about this project is they will use 2/3 of the water in the Natrium reactor than what the coal plant uses today. So that gives you an idea of kind of what's going on in this decade. There is a lot to watch and pay attention to. And this just gives you an idea of the number of developers that are working in this space. Some of them are only working on one design. Some of them are working on multiple designs. For example, BWXT and X Energy, not only are they designing new reactors, but they're also doing fuel fabrication. So lots of activity in this space. And I just wanted to give a little bit of context around used fuel, or what I normally call it, waste. So the way we store waste today, if you see the graph or the chart or the graphic on the right-hand side, so used fuel is actually a ceramic. Our fuel pellets are ceramic pellets inside of narrow zirconium tubes. And they're arranged in like a 17 by 17 matrix. And then they're very tall. They're about 30 to 40 feet tall. And each one of those blocks, that 17 by 17, is called a fuel assembly. We take it out of the core, we cool it in the spent fuel pool for 5 years. That's thermally cooling it. So we're actually getting the temperature down to within the design boundaries of the spent fuel canister that you see there. So then the canister is, you load the assemblies into the canister. That inner canister is typically a stainless steel canister. The outside is a concrete storage cast, and it can be either vertically like you see it here or stored horizontally. That inside steel canister is vacuumed. So you take all of the water, you take all of the gas out, and you fill it back up with inert gas and seal it up. And then these canisters are stored on site. They're called, this is a really fun acronym in our business. It's called ISFSIs, Independent Spent Fuel Storage Installations. If you don't love engineers now, you probably really do. But so if you were to pursue an advanced reactor in your community, you should expect to store fuel locally until such time as the Department of Energy has identified and cited a consolidated fuels fuel storage facility. Consolidated storage is underway right now. And what I like about what the DOE is doing, if you think about putting out an RFP for a service, what they're doing right now is they're setting the framework. They're deciding on the criteria by which you would choose a site. And then once that criteria has been established, this consent-based siting framework is what they call it. Once that framework is decided upon, then they will open it up to communities and states to express interest in hosting a consolidated fuel facility. So that's what's going on right now. And I think it's a reasoned process to identify where we might consolidate our storage. The other second thing that's going on is there is potential with the new reactors that we could recycle this waste and make it into new fuel for these new reactors. The hinge-pin there is it has to be economic. So there's research going on right now, and there's private companies investing in this right now to understand if they can make that process economical. If they can make that process economical, then we could choose in the United States to close our fuel cycle. There are other countries that do recycle their waste. So it is possible, but that's really what's going on with waste in the United States. I'm not going to go through a lot of details on this particular report. I think this is a good report. It just came out in March of this year. It really gives the state of play in terms of what's going on with advanced nuclear and what it will really take for it to be commercialized. And there's three things to understand. I think, so this was put out by the Loan Programs Office. I'll share this report with you directly. There's also other liftoff reports they're doing on other technologies. So you would get this, a similar kind of commercialization perspective on other technologies if you're interested in that. For advanced nuclear, what they did was they looked to see, to reach a net zero economy, what would it take? How much clean, firm capacity would we need? And they looked at a lot of different models. Generally, the range is coming in somewhere between 550 and 770 gigawatts of clean, firm capacity. If you were to translate that to how much nuclear energy could serve in that capacity, you could see US nuclear scale to about 300 gigawatts by 2050. But to achieve that, what we really have to do is get beyond first of a kind demonstration plants to nth of a kind plants. Similar to the innovation and the cost we saw as we deployed more renewables into the field, the more you do these projects, the more you drive down those capital costs just through the learning and then also economies of scale. The chart here is from the report that just gives you a comparison of what an estimated LCOE would look like for advanced nuclear, first of a kind with tax credits, and then nth of a kind with tax credits. I will tell you, for deploying in a coal community, there's additional tax credits for producing with clean energy. So there's the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act, clean energy production tax credits, but there's also another 10% for delivering clean energy in coal communities. Again, thinking about our energy landscape and the way the different criteria by which you might measure those different technologies, this just kind of puts them all on one page with a comparison. And you can see nuclear checks a lot of, it's a very dense energy. It doesn't use a lot of land. But where the jury is out is, are we cost competitive? And that's really what this decade for our industry is about. I wanted to show you a study that was done. This was done by Pacific Northwest. So Pacific Northwest is in Washington State. They actually own every type of clean generation. They own nuclear through the Columbia Generating Station. They have wind, they have solar, they have hydro, they have geothermal. So what they were looking at was what it would take for them to achieve 100% carbon free by 2045. And on the left-hand bar, you see how much they would need to build, how much capacity they would need to have in the system if they did that with 100% renewables. If they extended the life of Columbia Generating Station, you see a little bit less capacity is needed. And then the far right hand is building an SMR. And this is where I think nuclear plays an important role in helping us to think about how we optimize the resources we already have, and then also ensure that we don't have to, we're not overbuilding to achieve the same performance in our electricity sector. More than happy to share this report as well and connect you with the research team if you'd like to talk more about that, or the utility. So where are we with electricity? As you know, we've been retiring our coal stations, and on the left-hand side, you can see that's the biggest drop that we've seen in the last 10 years. A lot of that has been replaced with gas. On the very bottom of that chart, you see wind and solar picking up, but not at the same rate. Nuclear's kind of been slow and steady, right? That's, you know, we've been, I hate to say plodding along, but we've kind of been plodding along. On the right-hand side is the planned coal retirement. And the line there is the megawatts associated with coming offline. And where there's an opportunity is, you see, we know there's a significant amount of retirements that are going on through 2025. But then there's a little bit of a lull in the system, and then retirements pick back up. And this is where I got interested as a researcher, is what could we do potentially with repurposing those stations where our demonstration period is coming to a close in this decade? Could we envision repurposing coal stations with advanced nuclear stations? So what does that really mean? That really is, there's a few different ways to think about that. One is taking the coal station completely back to greenfield and building fresh from there. Another one is looking at just reusing the site itself, the electrical connections, your transmission connections, your water, your rail, and your admin buildings. And then something that's a little more challenging to consider is actually coupling it with a steam cycle equipment that's already there. And whether you do a direct connect or an indirect connect through like a molten salt battery. The challenge with a direct connection is there's a safety envelope associated with what we call the nuclear island. And that safety envelope can actually move into your secondary side, your steam cycle equipment, if you're trying to connect to older equipment. And one of the things we're trying to do in this new fleet of reactors is have a very tight envelope on the nuclear island, such that we're using commercial equipment on our secondary steam cycle. That's one of the ways that we're driving down the cost in manufacturing these in the future, is by using commercial equipment where we can and not having everything be bespoke. So last year, our systems analysis, the Department of Energy has a group called the Systems Analysis and Integration Group, and they did a study looking at coal sites. And we did not look at all coal sites. We looked at operating coal sites and coal sites that have been retired in the last 6 years. And the first thing they did was, so when you site a nuclear power plant, there's some specific criteria, seismic, flooding, slope, population, that you have to clear to be able to even consider a nuclear reactor in that space. And what they discovered is, and what's shown here is for the operating sites today, 80% of the operating sites today could be suitable for a small modular reactor. In addition, what they did was also look at the economic impact. And I heard the comments in the opening part of this meeting. There is a large impact in terms of transitioning from a coal unit to transitioning that to a nuclear station. You not only preserve the jobs, but you actually add more jobs in the region. And so they looked at an economic analysis. We were using data that was available from NewScale and from TerraPower. The net change, though, is 650 jobs. That's not just at the plant, that's also in the community. And it also gives you $275 million of new economic activity. And again, the research economist behind this, Jason Hansen, is a wonderful gentleman to talk to if you'd like to understand more about his analysis. What GAIN is doing is we have partnered specifically with 2 non-nuclear utilities to evaluate 2 coal stations, and our work will be finished by September of this year. Coronado Generating Station is in Northeast Arizona, and it has 6 other coal units within commuting distance that might retire as well. So we're working with Salt River Project to do 3 distinct things. We're doing an economic analysis for St. John's, similar to what I just showed you, so that the town knows what might be coming if the utility decide to convert the station. We're also digging one more layer into the siting to make sure that there's nothing exclusionary or that might need additional engineering in terms of siting a reactor at their station. And then the last piece of it is helping them based on the business objectives, whether they want to produce electricity or hydrogen or whatever they might want to resource in that area for that plant. We're helping them to narrow the different technologies that are out there to match their business objectives. We won't complete this analysis for them, but we'll be able to give the utility a few technologies that they want to watch as they continue down the path of making a decision as to whether nuclear is the right decision for them at this station. I'll also note that Apache County extends into Navajo Nation. So working with the utility, we are also making sure to include Navajo Nation in the progress of our project as it goes on. The other station is in, yes.
Sorry to interrupt, but we've got about 5 minutes left. So
this is really the last piece on the Gent station in Kentucky. This particular station, what's unique about this particular project, we're doing some of the same things that we're doing for Coronado, but what's unique here is they directly support steel manufacturing mills. So in the beginning, I talked about whether you would supply their energy through hydrogen or direct heat. That's one of the things we're going to be digging into, is how you could use an advanced nuclear station to support industrial customers. I have some additional information. This just gives you an idea of the different groups that are doing research on coal to nuclear. There's a lot of activity going on in the States. This is a wrap up of the different policies that happened across the United States in 2022. In 2023, there are 32 states with over 100 bills considering different aspects of nuclear technology. And that's my small but mighty team. And we are always here to help. And I'm going to stop sharing so I can see your faces again.
10 minutes for questions.
Yeah, so we have about 5 or 10 minutes for questions. And I had a couple for you.
Okay.
For these new reactors, it looks like they're going to be proved out through this decade, maybe available after 2030 timeframe. Is that kind of okay?
Yeah, that's fair.
And how do they compare as far as levelized cost of energy, compared to existing nuclear reactors?
Well, that is truly the $1 million question right now. I will tell you the Maryland Energy Authority did a study with X Energy where they did actually calculate the levelized cost of electricity, that they did not publish that information publicly. The Loan Programs Office is, and there's lots of folks that have established what that target needs to be competitive in the market. But I think it's in talking directly with the developers that you would get that information. My program is working to try to draw that information out in an anonymized fashion. We just don't have that available today. But there's been a lot of research in understanding what the LCOE needs to be competitive.
A lot of the fossil fuel generators today, are not very efficient. In other words, most of that energy is lost, right? How efficient are the nuclear generators? Is there a lot of, on a coal generator, I think it's maybe you get about 30% of the energy out that you put in, right? Is a nuclear comparable to that? I mean, it's kind of using the same steam generator, right?
Right. So, so the way we normally talk about that is a capacity factor, and that's really based on how often the plant is on and operating at 100%. Our existing fleet has capacity factors over 90%, which is double some of the other generation sources. And so it does tend to be an always on and always available technology with high reliability rates. These new technologies are expected to be similar capacity factors.
How does that make it dispatchable if it works when it's always on?
Well, so this is where that dual purpose comes into play. So if you focus just on the fact that we're creating thermal energy, you can decide, am I going to deploy that thermal energy to make electricity, or am I going to deploy that thermal energy to heat up a battery, like a molten salt thermal energy storage unit? Am I going to use that to produce hydrogen? So that's where the biggest difference is. It's in that dual purposing.
Now, as far as the waste is concerned, you showed one of the casts that the waste is put in. How long do those casts last?
So they're normally licensed similar to our plants. So the storage facility itself has a license, and then each cask design has a license. And those, I believe, and I will double check this for you. It's been a while since I've looked at this criteria, but I believe the licenses are renewed every 20 years.
Okay. And how long do you have to keep that waste? I mean, how long before it's inert?
Well, that depends on the waste form. And certainly we are planning a consolidated waste facility for hundreds of years. So a consolidated storage facility would be planned for many years kind of generational storage. On site, though, I think we are moving towards having, like, if you were to build a reactor in 2030, you would need to plan, I think, again, my opinion, I think you would need to plan for at least 20 years of on-site storage before a consolidated storage would be available to you.
How many cylinders would that be?
I do not.
The question was said, how many casts would that end up being then?
I think for, again, I can get you some specific numbers. I think for the 40 years of operation of Maine Yankee, they ended up with less than 30 casks, but I'll validate that for you. It's not a significant amount. If you were to take all, I think there was a bullet point that I didn't talk about, but if you were to take all of the fuel and stack it up on a football field for all of our reactors in the United States, it would only be 10 yards high. So the volume is not significant.
Okay. I'm going to open it up to everybody for questions. So.
I just have, it's kind of a clarification. Right now with the small modular nuclear reactors, when will the first one in your estimate be hooked up to a distribution and not a demo?
Well, the carbon-free, first of all, I think it kind of depends on what you call small modular. X Energy and the Natrium project are both commercial scale and will be connected. With X Energy, they'll be connected to Dow Chemical. Natrium will be connected to the grid, and that is scheduled to be. X Energy is planning to be first at 2028.
2028. And you call them micros. Is when you were using the term micro, were you referring to small
Project, I think, is 2029.
Oh, were you referring to small modular reactors when you were calling them micros? Is that you were calling them micro reactors? Looks like the.
You may have frozen on us, Christine.
It's not a very good way to describe the reactors because many of them are small and they're in.
She's still breaking.
In these last questions, we're kind of losing the connection. You're kind of freezing up on us, so we didn't really hear the answer to the micro reactor. But that's
Some of them are single units. Some of them are multiple units. So like the X Energy is 4 modules. The Natrium reactor is 345 in one reactor, 345 megawatts in one reactor. So, and I can share with you a primer that kind of talks about the different types of designs that are out there. But small modular has become a really great marketing term that's unfortunately a little bit confusing.
Well, thank you so much.
Sure.
Any more questions? Otherwise, we're going to go ahead and I guess wrap up. Thank you so much.
There's some questions in the chat, and I'd be more than happy to copy those down and answer those in an email that you guys could share with your committee. I realize you have other business to take care of tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
And we'd like to get a copy of your presentation too.
Yes, and I will send that as well.
Okay.
Thank you so much for letting me join, and I always available to help if there's other questions that come along.
Okay. Yes, thank you.
Thanks, Christine.
Sure thing.
Right. Edgy, you're on. We're moving on to our next guest.
We have a guest, Carol Connors. I'll let you introduce yourself. She's with the Public Utilities Commission. I've had an opportunity to discuss with her and communicate on email. So I recommend her very highly in her knowledge.
She's got 15 minutes.
And you got 15 minutes to us.
Well, I can be very fast, actually. There is Feels like I know she's gonna need help. One of the things I relatively new to the Colorado Public Utilities Commission, I started May actually. One of the things that I'm trying to do is get out to the communities, involved with stakeholder engagement and outreach. Some of you have seen actually, Black Hills public hearing back in October. I was there, and some other events. You probably get blasted with emails from me. But basically, what I'm trying to do, especially because I live in Pueblo West area. So for me, my communities are where I want to make sure you have liaison to the PUC. Oh, sorry. And I'm gonna blow through some of this actually fairly quickly because I know you're predominantly concerned about energy, so I don't want to get too far off track. Whoops. The one thing I am finding is, so we're part of the Department of Regulatory Affairs of the state. And that comprises about 10 different divisions, and we're one of them. So DORA in general, Department of Regulatory Agencies, as you can see, probably a little less than 700 people full-time altogether in all 10 agencies. And currently, we just have some new information. There we go. As you can see, Patty Salazar is at the top. She's the executive director of DORA. Under that is any host of different things, all of which, if we don't know the answer to something, probably one of the other divisions does. And right now, we just this week had a new director start. Her name is Rebecca White. I have a little bit of a background. I have not met her yet. So, but she does come to DORA and the PUC from CDOT, where she was director of division of transportation. And she also has a background with the Environmental Protection Agency in Washington. And again, these are just some of what DORA regulates, in addition to the PUC, which we are a part of. But it's any number of different industries throughout the state. Now, I know Pueblo has a very high energy IQ. I know things that the community has done in the past few years, very well educated to energy, how it works in the state of Colorado. It's not so much the education part for you folks in terms of energy engagement, but these are some of the other agencies and what we're involved in and what we have under our jurisdictions.
That's a lot.
So what do we do? Primarily, we're there to serve public interests. We're there to help consumers. I think this gentleman, I actually took a class with him just recently, and he is adjudicated law judge with FERC, and he's the effective regulator. Defines public interest, defines what that is in private versus public interest, and then how to shape regulation to align that behavior with public interest. I think that's a really good way to say it. And there are PUCs in every state. Sometimes they're called different things. So right now, what we regulate, a lot of people don't realize, is there is more than energy at the Public Utilities Commission. Energy, because my background actually is on the utility side as well, and particularly energy and water. Was actually a little surprised when I first started. I was like, wait, you have these other industries? So some of the other ones are telecommunications. They just started a new one where they're looking at predatory behavior regarding inmate communication, cell phone usage, and who can be served by them. Transportation, towing, there's a lot going on, and new legislation was passed in August of last year. Basically changing the methodology in terms of how towing companies can work. And it has a lot to do with non-consensual towing. So as opposed to if your car breaks down, you call AAA, whatever, that's considered consensual. Non-consensual is that say somebody parks where they're not supposed to. So right now, they have to get 24-hour noticing in a residential area. And there are exceptions to it as well. They're parked in a fire lane, you're parked in just a permit parking, you're obstructing a residential driveway. I mean, those all are exceptions to 24-hour notice. Taxis, there was some legislation that was passed recently about the total that they can maximize in terms of they can charge. We're also in charge of gas pipeline safety, and we oversee their gas pipeline safety programs, like for, I'll just use Excel and Atmos, for example, Black Hills. So they look at how they basically operate their lines, and they do regular safety inspections on them. Right now, we have a couple initiatives going on. And one is Senate Bill 21-272, which was passed 2021, I believe. 2022, I'm sorry. Which looks at a number of things, also agency modernization. And what became very, very active this year, the first part of the year, had to do with affordability and high utility bills. So why do we exist? Again, you folks are very knowledgeable, but we operate basically over these investor-owned utilities because they're natural monopolies. And so right now we regulate the rates for 2 electric and 4 gas utilities, which are considered to be monopolies. You probably know all of them. So commission process, again, we have staff. So the commission has about 110 staff members, and then you have the commissioners, 3 commissioners, and they act in somewhat of a quasi-judicial proceedings under formal law processes and are conducted on the record. Typically, when an attorney would be required, perhaps. When the commission sets rates, it acts in a legislative capacity, but also decides cases like a judge. The evidence before them. Stakeholder meetings. This is part of the reason I'm here, actually. As I am building out a outreach plan that is primarily looking to get more engaged on the front end of things before we go into proceedings. Because if any of you were at the Black Hills public hearing in October, public comment hearings they're constructed in a certain way that for anybody not familiar with it, it might be hard to understand what's going on. So, but if we can go out and do education ahead of that, that's really what we're aiming for. But you can get involved right now, currently. We have a number of things on our website, including key proceedings and milestone dates scheduled. The agency's rule schedule, the detailed processes during the rulemakings. You can give input on a specific rule. Again, I'm using Black Hills, for example, that was very specific to that case. Currently, the outreach plan is to get in advance of those and enhance education of various projects and what the PDC does. So I can tell you right now, not a lot of people know. Pueblo is definitely an exception to that. But Pueblo is very knowledgeable. So the key issue is 21-272. It has to do with really trying to find equity, minimize the impacts of the energy industry, and what benefits can be developed to address the needs of those folks in those communities. So it's considered proceeding number 22M01 Seminole. And I tell you, I had to get used to numbers really quickly with proceedings, because that's how they talk. Wait a minute, is that Excel or Black Hills? And really, how can we improve outreach? You've probably been to some of our public comment hearings or witnessed it. What we're trying to do is figure out how we can do a better job, and the best way to communicate and the best way to get information to you as you need it and you find it most useful to you. So we're interested in learning from stakeholders, and we do have information on this particular initiative on our website. And you do have a copy of this presentation as well, so the links are embedded. Another one, this is one that came up earlier this year, and you're probably familiar with. The PUC also released an initial work plan in response to that. So, and that hit on April 11th, following their discussions at the April 5th weekly commissioners meeting. So the initiative is to really look across the agency to see how we can work with the energy companies to help respond to that affordability issue, which definitely has surges during the winter season. We see that. I'm sure you're very familiar with that. And then it was confirmed again by the governor's office earlier this year with an affordability initiative as well. And again, there's a link. We have a new page on our website that deals specifically with this issue. And again, very quickly, why did it happen? Why was it so particularly hard this year? Again, gas is unregulated. It wasn't just Excel or Black Hills. It was pretty unilateral across the industry. And why so much higher from last year? Again, I'm not picking on Excel, by the way. This was just the average. So electric bills increased 25%, gas bill 75%. And they came at a very difficult time. So what we were hearing at some of the listening sessions, the end of January, early February, people were angry, very angry. And what they shared was they were having a difficult time. Do we pay our heating bill? Do I pay for medications? Do we pay our heating bill? Or do I buy food? So it was very down to earth. It was
Difficult.
It was difficult.
You know, it's funny because, you know, you hear these little outbursts, you know, in the middle of winter when it's cold and people are using a lot of energy, in the middle of summer when it's hot and people are using a lot of energy. And you know, the voice from the Excel people really exploded this year. But they're still lower cost than we are here with Black Hills.
And again, this is just, it's general information. Again, you folks are so much more educated to the process. So I don't want to waste your time there, but basically the 4 factors: fuel cost, usage, recovery from our Storm Uri, which was 2 years ago, and the utility base rates for both, in terms of Excel for electric and gas.
When is this recovery done with the Uri storm from a Black Hill standpoint? You know?
Well, you know, they are having, there's a Excel public hearing at the end of May, I want to say May 31st. It's on our website as well. And I know that's going to be part of the discussion.
Because that was, I mean, for Black Hills, it was a 2-year fee, right, where they're going to pay off that Uri high gas cost because of Uri.
And they
When is-
go out to purchase it.
When is that over, though? Do you know?
As soon as they recover the costs.
But it's supposed to, the recovery is supposed to be 2 years, right? I mean, it's not going to go on.
Impermanently. So the things that aren't driving the high bills, I know Excel has been rolling out smart meters, Black Hills has already done that. And one of the things that we heard during the conversations at the end of January, early February, were people were equating smart meters with the increase in prices. The time of use rates were being introduced, investment in renewables. Clean heat plans are being developed. They have not yet come out, so I think we'll be seeing those if I'm correct. Maybe the summer, fall, going into summer, fall this year. When they'll be reviewed for those plans.
Yeah, if it's all right with you, I'm gonna ask everyone if they to look at the rest of your presentation, and if you have any questions, to contact you directly.
I would very likely thank you. I would encourage that.
And we really appreciate you being here, and sorry, like a lot of agendas, sometimes things get squeezed, but you have one advocate here because you know, to contact the PUC, you know, Black Hills and Excel, they're utility companies, but they're quality orientated. They can't do anything for the city that they can't do for other customers. And so I always encourage them to go to the PUC, other than the franchise agreements, for go directly. But thanks so much for coming. You're more than welcome to stay. And for the next, we're only here for another 10 minutes. So
Yeah, actually, if it's okay to say.
yeah, it'd be wonderful.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Gail.
Yeah, thank you, Gail. Eddie and Ken, thank you for facilitating both of the presentations today. Now we do have the opportunity for the three committees to report. We also want to talk a little bit, and we can go, you know, we still got 10 minutes. I think it's important for us to talk a little bit about what the mayor came in here and visited with about. So anyone want to defer in terms of what the committees at this point in time?
Well, I could go first because ours is easy.
Okay. Yeah.
We have no updates at this time.
All right.
And so we're going to pass it to the other subcommittees.
Okay.
I prefer to talk about this energy commission
Okay.
because I think it's real important.
And you represent which one? The
The
energy
policy.
Okay, and then how about the energy outreach? Does anybody hear from that?
Yes, yeah, I'm happy to speak. So I actually have an ask of the commission because we had proposed working through the city to post an announcement about the Public Utilities Commission. They have an affordability page, and we thought that would be a great thing to post to the community so they could give input and feedback, but we did get pushback from the Black Hills Energy members participating in our subcommittee. And so given that it's seemingly a controversial post, I wanted to take it to the full advisory commission here for a more formal vote or directive on moving forward with that, and potentially future postings about how the community can engage through the Public Utilities Commission in Black Hills proceedings.
So what was the concerns?
They were saying, we don't really think that, you know, the public needs to have access to this link, or that it's of much concern to them. You know, we would rather post about some of our rebates, was kind of their take on it. But for a number of reasons, I would still be in favor of the public knowing that this website exists, that they can go there, that they can provide input, because it also provides a number of valuable links to the public that can give them more information about why their bill looks the way it looks, and what is gas, you know, what are these cost recovery measures all about, and some other very informative pieces of information.
So what you're proposing is that the website is, we make that knowledge available to the community.
Yes, that we move forward with encouraging the city to post it to their social media pages.
Yeah, it's not what's on the website, but for people to access it if they want to get information.
Yes.
I guess, why would they not want that when they got a website set up to do that?
Who's going to be in charge, Laura, of making sure of the accuracy?
When we get an energy coordinator.
Okay, so maybe we should wait to post it until the end of the coordinator?
Yeah, let's-
This website you're talking about, is it a city website, Laura, or?
No, it's a it's the Public Utilities Commission website. And on it, and actually, Gail, you could probably give more info because you probably created that website yourself, to be honest.
Thanks for saying.
Yeah, I know Laura, by the way. So
Yes, great.
it's Laura. Yeah, it is on the website. It goes into a great amount of information. We're looking at a number of things. There's the affordability work plans on it and how we're breaking down how the PUC is going to address those particular issues. With also links to the different energy companies, what you should know, about disconnections, things of that nature. So there's quite a bit of information on it. We just put it out actually probably in the last couple of weeks.
So the PUC wants that to be made available to the public.
I think it's important because you get a lot of, in social media, people are always mad about their energy costs. And it's the mayor's fault, or it's the commissioner's fault, or it's my next door neighbor's dog's fault, or something like that. When it would be nice for them to understand how the system really works, right?
So I spoke too soon, Laura. I didn't know that was from the PUC, and then it'll be on the city's website. Is that what you're stating, Laura?
Yes, I'm kind of asking for a vote of the commission, whether or not to have the city move forward with posting that link on their social media channel.
Yeah, and I'm not even sure, Alyssa, if you're on, how many members do we have here?
We got a quorum.
Yes, just 1 minute here. You definitely have a quorum. You can take a vote.
Okay, so everybody's heard what Laura's proposing, that what's provided to the website by the PUC be also posted on the city's website. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. And with that, I just want to add that Madam Chief of Staff, Laura Solano, said that they they've all agreed on the job description, and they will be posting that for that position. And they will be housed, that person will be housed across the street at the senior center on the 3rd floor, and be able to be accessed them through there.
Good news.
Okay. Does that conclude your report, Laura?
Yeah, we can leave it at that. Thank you all.
Okay, all right, great. So let's just kind of move into what the mayor, and let's take about 10 or so minutes to talk about that. Anybody want to start with that conversation in terms of what he shared with us?
I made that comment about deregulation. It was interesting on that committee, all industrial leaders or schools, things like that. If we've all heard about deregulation means that Excel can come in to Black Hills area and pick up customers because it'll be a deregulated situation or has the potential. But I'd ask just a quick, I've heard that PUC has been getting some requests for talking about deregulation of the electric industry like Texas.
I've heard general comments. I don't know if there's actually been anything that's been submitted for formal discussion or review. Because the commissioners, not only do they respond to the applications by the energy companies, if they want to do an investigation, they can open one themselves. So it could be something that could be looked at as an investigatory proceeding, I guess. But they are certainly, there's definitely a dialogue about it that's happening in the industry.
Well, thanks. I just wanted to finish that, but anyone else got anything? I'm done.
I wanted to talk about this Excel Energy Commission.
That's what we were talking about, right?
The one that's going to make the recommendation of what, if they reuse Comanche 3, what will be the source of producing energy? That's kind of what
They're going to make recommendations on how Excel can generate energy in Pueblo County.
Right.
That's not really going to be used by Pueblo
Right.
County. And if you listened to the workshop that Ashley Valdez from Excel gave, she made some statements in there that kind of concerned me. Because right off the bat, she said, renewable energy uses too much land. So there's an anti-renewable energy thing. And our initiative here by the city is to be 100% renewable by 2035. So it goes against what we're trying to do. The other comment she made about carbon sequestering, that we need to investigate carbon sequestering. It's kind of a greenwashing that you can make hydrogen from methane, for example, and you sequester the carbon dioxide that comes out of it. But if you look at that process, and there's a lot of reports out there, we ought to just burn natural gas to make the energy. It would produce less pollution. Isn't that so? It doesn't make sense to do that. Also, that group of people are going to propose nuclear as an option because it's a great way to help the tax base in Pueblo. But most of the citizens of Pueblo don't want it. A poll was made about a year ago, and 2/3 of the people want renewable over nuclear. So the concern is that this group of people won't listen to that. So I'm concerned about it.
Let me read off who the individuals are, just for everyone.
Do you have their goal on there too?
This is the article, it was in the newspaper.
Okay.
It's probably there, it's a long article, but I just want to read the names. Corrine Kaler and Francis Concilia. Corrine is a former city council member and Francis Concilia is an attorney. And she's already done work in negotiating the extended tax payment agreement on Comanche 3 after they decommissioned it for 10 more years. She was involved with that negotiations. Dwayne Nava, President and CEO of the Greater Pueblo Chamber of Commerce. Patty Erjavik, President of Pueblo Community College. Jeff Shaw, President of the Pueblo Economic Development Corporation. Chris Wiseman, former Pueblo County Commissioner. Jerry Bella, International Vice President of 8th District of International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. Sarah Blackhurst, President and CEO of Action 22. Russell DeSalvo, President and CEO of Puebloplex. Timothy Mote, President of Colorado State University, Pueblo. And Dennis Mays, retired district judge and former Pueblo School District 60 Board of Education member. And pretty much I didn't see anybody with any kind of energy background, kind of, except for electric workers.
And does it state their purpose? Do they have like a goal or?
Yeah, why don't you keep talking, I'll see if I can.
If you
pick it up.
look at their presentation, she gave a presentation. You can go to the city website and download this stuff. So there's the video. It's actually on YouTube. And then at part of the city website, they have the presentation. So they're supposed to evaluate all these optional energy resources to work on this next ERP that Excel is doing, to recommend what kind of generation sources they ought to put in Pueblo.
So here's what it states real quick. It's a paragraph. Excuse me, Ken. The Pueblo Innovative Energy Solutions Advisory Committee will produce an innovative energy solutions advisory study that is expected to inform bids for XL Pueblo's Just Transition Plan, according to a news release. And that plan is expected to begin in 2024 and must be submitted to the Colorado Public Utilities Commission by June of 2024.
Did you say bids?
That's what it refers to.
Yeah, so
So we got a bunch of people that don't know anything about energy proposing what energy we're going to be using.
well, to pick our bidders for whatever. That's interesting.
So, and I think the mayor, if I remember correctly, said, of course, those are open meetings and anyone's welcome to attend to them. I'm not sure, it must be posted when they meet and where they meet. So, and I think it was pretty clear based on what you heard and what Councilman Atencio said, that there was no open seats on that group, that it was
Yeah,
closed.
Larry Atencio asked
Ashley.
Ashley, thank you.
And this is,
You know, He said, you know, we've got an energy commission here. And somebody from our energy commission, you know, be on that board. And she said, no.
So it was developed by Excel and it's controlled completely by Excel, right? It's had nothing to do with the city or the county or anybody.
The people that are running the meeting are Consilia and another lady who's a financial.
Taylor.
But I'm talking about who created this.
I think the county commissioners,
Oh, so you think it was created?
we
by-
think,
Oh, that's interesting.
and so,
Be a good question.
You know, I think the focus and Nick even mentioned this, it's really to kind of preserve the tax base is really what they want. It's not what energy source we use, but you know, the issue I have with it, if we make a bad choice, like building a Comanche plant that retires 50 years early, and then we're left with the burden of trying to figure out how to fix the tax base.
Who's the chair? Is Ashley the chair?
no, it's co-chair, it's Corinne and Francis are the co-chairs.
It's interesting that Ashley's the one that answered their question
Yeah,
about
but
we can't.
Yeah, she's probably an
This-
advisor to the group. But
This may have come out of Excel, but you know, it's kind of, you know, the other thing too is we had Danae Escar that was the person that was supposed to be working on how to do this transition, you know.
And the mayor says they've been working on it with the county and all them for
Yeah.
a period of time.
And she's not on this commission, right? So.
That could change with if she becomes the county commissioner. So, you know, what we could do is we can invite one of those co-chairs to come and explain.
Yeah, it'd be great. I guess, or do we need to know?
Well, they're making decisions for Pueblo.
I don't think they're,
Well,
they're
they're making
recommendations.
recommendations for,
Yeah,
so a lot of
the-
that power doesn't come to us.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is, if they continue that plant here, creating energy, there's gonna be recommendations made of what the source of making that.
My point is that there's good things to do and there's bad things to do.
Oh, yeah.
And this is why I wanted to do this, our June presentation. Because he has a really interesting perspective on how to grow our energy business and to do some smart things in the process.
So how much time will it need?
45 minutes.
45?
But we're already past our.
So let's plan on that for next time. And let me reach out to Corinne Kaler and see if there's any interest on their part to come and
Yeah,
just give us a little update on that.
Interesting.
Okay,
That'd be good, yeah.
Are those televised or those are not televised? Is there a video record of what they're?
Maybe we can ask Alyssa to find out for us when these things are scheduled,
okay.
so we can
all right.
attend these
We'll do
meetings.
that.
And if they're not public, then that's a red
Alyssa,
flag, right?
can you hear that?
Yeah, I can look into that.
Okay, thank you. And that's so the presentation that Ken talked about, that'll be on the agenda. We also will have our 3 groups. And then we'll see if there's anyone interested coming from that group to talk to us. Yes,
I know I'm not supposed to say.
no, your part, yes.
I'm talking with Kareem day before yesterday,
Uh-huh.
and I would advise you to see if you could get Francis, because I don't think Kareem is as up to date on what.
Oh, well, I was just gonna ask her just because I know her better,
I know.
but I'm not necessarily for her to come. You know, it's like whoever they want to
Is
send.
she the co-chair?
Yeah, she's a co-chair, right? Yeah, so we'll reach out to them. And again, Frances is in Denver, but she could come on via Zoom, or something like that, so. But, all right, this meeting's adjourned. Thank you.
Thanks.
Interesting.
But she was the one initially who hired this consultant by the county,
Yeah, she still is the energy. Right,
Yeah.
Energy.
Who's that?
Frances.
Francis.
Oh, yeah.